Hello, Star Trek fans, and welcome to the Rebinge Deep Space Nine podcast. My name is Kim.
And my name is James.
And we're watching Star Trek Deep Space Nine from the beginning, one episode at a time. Welcome back to the podcast. Today we are on Season 6, Episode 22, Valiant. This episode aired May 6th, 1998. Before we talk about this one, anything to say about last week's podcast, which was The Reckoning?
No, it was a fantastic episode and probably one of my favorite episodes of Deep Space Nine.
And of the podcast.
I did enjoy podcasting about it.
And you said it was a good edit.
Yeah, it's long. I make no apologies.
I don't think this one will be as long.
No.
But we should say that you should stick around to the end, and we're going to make a little announcement about episode 23. But we'll save that for the end.
Yes. So are you ready to talk about episode 22 of Valiant?
I am.
We open in Quark's bar, and it's complete chaos. Quark informs Odo his replicators are on the fritz, and he's still waiting for repair. Jadzia arrives to fix them for him, and we discover that Nog is away on a last-minute trip to Ferenginar, so she's covering. Quark is surprised that Dax is doing this work. As he puts it, it's the work of a mechanic, a repairman, a lowly engineer. I can't decide whether this is a bit of a classist attitude from Quark here, or if it's just his continuingly sad obsession with Dax.
Well, I think it's that, but it's also because he's looking at this as something Rom should be doing.
Oh, and he does look down on Rom, yeah.
He definitely does. Although that replicator was disgusting.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's several health code violations that he should be taken to task over.
Yeah, really gross. I'm glad it wasn't in high def. I enjoyed, too, in this scene, how much Odo was enjoying Quark's unhappiness.
Yes.
He's always laughing at Quark's total stress or anything bad that happens to him.
Yes, he immediately starts mocking Quark, saying he's in love and doing it in a very condescending way. He is almost as bad as Bashir in this. He needs to just really let the stalking go and move on with his life.
Yeah. What even is the point of this scene? It's completely stupid. There's no value in it. It is really just to show this nonsense with Quark being in love with Dax. And
I know.
By the way, we already know. You don't have to tell us.
I think it's to show that, stalking is okay.
I was disappointed in this scene.
Plus, I think Quark needs to upgrade his attitude towards the engineering staff, because otherwise he's going to end up at the bottom of a priority list.
Yeah. You got to make friends if you want them to fix things.
Yeah, maintenance staff can cause you a lot of trouble if you're just crappy towards them.
Yeah, it's like being a jerk to the IT team.
Oh, yeah.
Don't do that.
Now we cut to a starbase with Jake and Nog on a shuttle, and it turns out that Nog has been given an official diplomatic message from the Federation Council to be personally delivered to the Grand Nagus. Jake is in full reporter mode because he wants to know what's in the communication. Jake thinks it's a proposal for an alliance between the Federation and the Ferengi, pointing out that the only Ferengi in Starfleet is personally delivering the message to the Nagus.
Yeah.
Also worth pointing out that it's the grandson of the Nagus's love interest and business partner.
But people aren't supposed to know that.
Do you think Jake doesn't know?
Well, I meant the reason Nog is delivering it. I don't think this would be an added reason because I'm not sure Starfleet knows that he's the grandson of the love interest of the Nagus.
Really?
Jake might know, but I don't know that Starfleet would know. Because he was keeping it hidden on Ferenginar.
Do you think Starfleet intelligence is that bad?
I don't think Starfleet intelligence cares about the Ferengi.
It could give you a political advantage.
They don't have a military. They hate women. They're a bunch of idiots. I don't get it. Who cares? I don't have a great feeling about the Ferengi right now because of the next episode.
Oh.
Ugh. Carry on.
Well, they care enough to send a message to the Grand Nagus, so...
They do.
They must have some worth.
We don't know what that message says, though. We never did find out.
You're all losers. Ha ha.
Yeah, ha ha. Jake is trying everything here to convince Nog that he should get to meet the Nagus.
Yes.
Apparently, he promised Nog that he wasn't going to act as a reporter on this trip, but he really is. But in his plea to try to convince him that he should get to see the Nagus, he says he's really excited to see Ferenginar and all the rain and the muck.
He is very unconvincing.
That's not convincing. And he makes a face when he says muck. It's actually pretty funny. Yeah, I enjoyed that.
Yes. And we learn that he's actually told the editor of the Federation News Service he could get an exclusive interview with Zach.
Yeah.
Nog protests, saying, "You promised." And Jake quotes that line again. The people have a right to know.
Why is he always making these journalistic platitudes that are, I don't even know, are they really even from journalists, or are they from the movies that have journalism?
I think that's where Jake gets a lot of it from.
Yeah.
He gets it from an almost idealistic movie, comic book sort of standpoint. So he's regurgitating the things he thinks he should say.
Yeah.
And we mentioned before, Jake is a little bit idealistic.
Yeah, he is.
As they depart the station, Nog finds that their sensors are being jammed, and from the view screen we see a flight of 6 Jem'Hadar fighters heading towards the starbase. And it gets worse. One of the fighters turns around and starts coming after them.
Yeah, it's not good.
And we go into the opening credits.
Anytime there's a Jem'Hadar ship in the cold open is scary.
This also might be another display of Vorta tactical idiocy. You have 6 ships attacking the space station, and one of them turns around to attack a single shuttle.
Yeah. That has no weapons.
When you should be concentrating on attacking and maybe destroying the station.
Yeah.
They're dividing their forces.
That's a good point.
I think maybe the Vorta are tactically limited.
Mm-hmm.
So we get some effect shots of the shuttle trying to evade the Jem'Hadar fighter, and Nog tells Jake that he's going to drop out of warp. If he's got to fight, it'll be at impulse. Well, his plan doesn't go that well. The shuttle's getting beaten up, and they're struggling to maintain main power. Jake reports a ship's coming in. And it's the Defiant. We cut to an effects shot of a ship that looks exactly like the Defiant, flying in and shooting at the Jem'Hadar fighter. If you pause at this point, you can actually see on the top of the ship, USS Valiant.
Oh, cool.
Nog tells Jake the registration is NCC 74210, and the ship is actually called the Valiant. And if you'd pause the screen, you'd know that already. They're still taking fire, and Jake's console explodes in the traditional manner, and he's thrown to the ground, just as they're beamed off the runabout onto the Valiant. I always get the difference between like a shuttle and a runabout mixed up.
Yeah, I used to call them all shuttles until, I don't know, I read something that said these are runabouts on Deep Space Nine, not shuttles.
Yeah.
What is the difference? I think shuttles are bigger.
That might be homework post this episode. Well, they materialize aboard the Valiant, and we're introduced to a very young Starfleet cadet, Acting Chief Petty Officer Dorian Collins, thus demonstrating another part of Star Trek that all transporter chiefs have to be of Irish origin.
Ha ha.
It is! Miles O'Brien, Dorian Collins.
That's funny.
She escorts them to the bridge, and we see the crew are continuing to fight against the Jem'Hadar ship. And we also see they all seem to be very young.
And they're wearing old uniforms.
Nog tells Jake, these are Red Squad, a group of elite cadets at the Academy. They were the best of the best.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say, going from the rest of this episode, I wouldn't share that conclusion.
Well, but it means they're the best and the brightest. It doesn't necessarily mean they're already the best of the best.
They have the most potential.
They have potential, exactly. And potential needs to be molded. Potential needs experience.
Yeah.
By the way, a couple of the people in this episode are only 17 at the time of filming.
We get some more effects of the Valiant firing on the Jem'Hadar ship and eventually destroying it.
Yeah.
And there's some cheering from the bridge crew.
I like the cheering. It's like a team sport.
We're now introduced to Tim Waters, the commanding officer. He was given a battlefield commission by the previous captain, Ramirez, who was killed in action. Captain Waters is being very pleasant and seems very upbeat, and we get to meet Karen Farris, another kid, who's apparently the first officer.
Yeah, she's one of the 17-year-olds.
She does look young.
Yeah.
We discover they're having problems with their engines, and Nog chimes in with some ideas how to fix it. The captain suggests giving them a go and wants to speak further with Nog. And if you notice here as well, they're all wearing like an additional pin badge on their collar.
Yeah.
I feel in these situations, perhaps like an armband is better. You know, maybe with like red and white, maybe a black logo in the middle, that kind of thing.
Something. Right. I was very suspicious of all of this from the beginning.
Yeah.
Because maybe Star Trek has taught us that, but I was waiting for something very awful to happen, you know, for them to suddenly be evil and try to kill Nog, and I don't know. Anyway, I was very suspicious from the jump.
Well, from the episode Paradise Lost, there you should realize the questionable behavior that Red Squad has been involved with in the past.
Oh, for sure. But they were taking orders from errant admirals, which is the problem with the best and the brightest. They need molding, not from the worst and the darkest.
In sickbay, Dorian is helping Jake with the burns from the explosion earlier and explaining how they left Earth 8 months ago with 7 officers and 35 cadets. The mission was to circumnavigate the entire Federation before returning home. And I assume the plan was to get Red Squad well out the way before any questions were asked about what they were up to during the events of Paradise Lost.
Maybe.
Jake is surprised, saying, "A ship full of cadets." And Dorian replies, "Not just cadets, Mr. Sisko. We're Red Squad." So there's another little bit of a red flag problem there.
Yeah.
In Captain Waters' ready room, which we see has a giant emblem of Red Squad on the wall. Anyone else seeing a problem here? He explains they were caught at the start of the war behind enemy lines and how the crew were all killed in a battle with a Cardassian cruiser. The captain was fatally wounded in the battle, but before he died, he gave Waters command. And did anybody else witness this actually happening?
I wondered the same thing.
Yeah.
Again, this is part of my ongoing suspicion of what was happening in this episode.
Right. Was it at this point you were getting a Lord of the Flies vibe?
Well, I don't know Lord of the Flies, but I was 100% believing that this guy killed the captain.
Oh, or Children of the Corn.
Okay. Children of the Corn I am aware of. From Ruined.
Nog is impressed that they've spent 8 months behind enemy lines, and Waters invites Nog to join them and offers him the position of chief engineer and the rank of lieutenant commander. He tells Nog he needs to rise to the occasion and gives him a Red Squad pin. Oh, Nog is so easily influenced.
Yeah.
Do you remember in The Magnificent Ferengi?
Mm-hmm.
Quark ropes him in with, "Oh, you'll be the tactical officer."
Like Worf.
Oh, will I? Yeah. I kind of feel for Nog here because, as we know, he is the only Ferengi in Starfleet. So I would see him to an extent gravitating towards the found family. That these people are offering him to become part of a clique or an organization, part of the best of the best.
Yeah.
And it would appeal to Nog at a very base level. Because look at the way most of the Ferengi will look at Nog. They'll look at him as, "You're not a real Ferengi, you're not in business."
Yeah, and he really wanted to be a part of this group at Starfleet Academy. So, Of course, when the opportunity comes up, he's going to be swayed by it.
Well, Nog accepts the offer, and Waters tells him of the mission. They have to find a Cardassian battlecruiser, but as they can't get above Warp 3.2, they can't get within sensor range. Nog asks if Starfleet is aware he's in command, and super conveniently, Waters tells him they've had to maintain strict radio silence since the war began.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you were an experienced officer at this point, every red flag would be going off.
Yeah.
Every alarm would be, yeah, this is questionable.
Mm-hmm.
Waters finally tells him, "Make no mistake, I will carry out that mission or die trying."
Yeah, it was very suspicious at this point.
Yeah.
Not just because of the situation, but with him saying, we kept going on the mission even though every officer died.
Yep.
Everybody except for Red Squad died. And yeah, we had to maintain radio silence. Sure. That was the story. And we had to keep going. It's just like there's a million red flags and a million reasons to think this is nuts. How did nobody speak up? I guess because they're all kids.
Right. In the mess hall, Jake and Dorian are having coffee and she talks about her home on the moon. She describes how beautiful it is, and you get the impression that she misses her home.
Yeah.
Also in the mess, if you notice, when they come in, all the talking goes quiet.
Yeah. And they're all looking at Jake suspiciously.
This is a very unfriendly clique.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, in the engine room, Nog is implementing changes to the engine that O'Brien made to the Defiant, and the captain orders Nog to take them to Warp 4. We cut back to the mess, and Dorian is sitting looking at a pad, and she appears to have been crying. The captain comes in, opens a cabinet, and pops some pills.
Oh, no. Another red flag.
She sees this, and he turns around and asks her, "You got a problem, Chief?" He also sees she's been crying, and she admits she was thinking about home. And now we go to the captain and first officer, meeting with Jake. And the first officer is truly the definition of a snotty kid. And berates Sisko for having talked about family and home to Dorian. She says they're in the middle of a war and they can't have young cadets thinking about mommy and daddy. She tells him how he plunged a member of the crew into emotional turmoil. And I'm thinking at this point, wow, full-on cult.
Yeah, it very much is like a cult. Now we have to control what you're saying, what you're thinking, every moment of every day, what you're feeling. You're not allowed even to have feelings.
Right.
I mean, Jake was just making small talk.
Yeah.
And really what this is showing is a crack in your team, not a crack that Jake introduced. This is showing an actual problem that you have.
Yeah, I think it's showing that a lot of this is driven by controlling the behaviors of your crew and pressure on your very young crew to behave a particular way.
Yes.
It's sort of the ultimate peer pressure, like a cult.
Yeah, or also, though, like a group of kids in high school, just applying this crazy pressure to each other, and they just don't know better. And they also don't know that they have to stand up for themselves. Yeah. You don't have to listen to the person in charge all the time. You are allowed to just be a person. They just don't know better, and they don't have anyone there to give them a different voice.
Yeah, they lack the experience of being truly Starfleet officers and having the understanding of the responsibilities that come, not to obey illegal orders, not to do suicidal things. Yeah. Captain Waters, meanwhile, displays a compromising side and just tells Jake to not get involved and step back. He tells him, this ship is special. This crew is special. Yeah. Whatever fates guide the universe, they've chosen us to achieve some special purpose in this conflict. And even Jake, he's there for a purpose, to tell people of the Valiant and their crew. He makes Jake promise to stay away from Collins, and then leaves. Before the first officer leaves, she asks the captain, is everything okay? She's noticed he's not been getting much sleep, but he shrugs it off, saying he's fine. Clearly, he looks very exhausted at this point, and then pops some more pills.
That's the way to deal with it.
In my opinion, pill-popping captains are probably not going to work out well in the long run.
No. Really, anyone with some sort of chemical addiction is not necessarily the person you want to follow. I thought it was really interesting here when he tells Jake basically to be a reporter, to write the story and not be a part of the story. I don't think that's bad advice.
No.
And also it made me a little bit less suspicious of him. It's like, oh, he actually does think he's doing the right thing. And he is trying to tell Jake the same thing. Because if he was really trying to hide something, he would tell Jake he had no business writing the story, right? He would try to stop him from doing that. But he does think he's doing the right thing.
Oh, completely.
Yeah.
Maybe we should talk about this now.
Okay.
I saw this speech as absolutely fascinating. This is one of the other really important parts of of this episode. You're seeing that Waters is one of those people that he believes he has a destiny, that the gods have chosen him. He, if you like, is the embodiment of Starfleet and duty, and the universe owes him this sense of greatness. That is incredibly dangerous.
Yeah.
Entire nations have been plunged into war for people like that, because their greatness needs to be achieved. It is his destiny.
Well, that's the danger of Red Squad and the things that they're being told back at the academy. If they're truly being told that they're special and they're brilliant and whatever, and they might be very smart and they might have a lot of potential, but if you give them way more confidence than they have skill and experience to back it up, all they're going to do is put themselves and everyone around them in danger. And I guess what they didn't do is think about the fact that when left on their own, that was going to be disastrous.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And especially left with someone like this. I think you see everything that's wrong with Waters in his little speech here. Yeah. It's about him.
Right. Good point.
Jake catches up with Nog, who tells him he's been working in the engine room, and Jake notices the Red Squad insignia. He's surprised that Nog has joined the crew and also has been promoted to a rank. But there's a call to battle stations, and when they reach the bridge, we learn they found the Cardassian battleship. Nog explains to Jake how they'll launch a Class 3 probe, which is almost undetectable, and they'll use it to scan the battleship. Jake's asking too many questions, and the captain nods towards Jake. And then the first officer, Miss Pleasant, tells Jake, I don't recall anyone inviting you to the bridge, and he's forced to leave. Oh, she is the high school mean girl, isn't she?
Yeah, that was a very childish way to deal with that. I think instead they could have said, stop distracting the bridge officers, please get off the bridge. Like what they should say to Julian all the time.
And Worf has.
He has. I don't know why Jake is so surprised that Nog is drinking this Kool-Aid so quickly.
Yeah.
It feels quite in line with Nog. Just in the same way that when he came back from the academy, remember that episode
he was
where
120% in to the academy life.
Yeah, he was all in. Yes, he was doing the exercises. He wanted to keep his quarters exactly how they were supposed to be. He wanted to follow every rule.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't he be all in on this?
I think maybe because Nog had been on some missions and had some real-world experience. Remember, he's now an ensign. So
He
he's
is.
been with Sisko and the others. So maybe he made the incorrect assumption that Nog had grown enough to not be influenced by this.
But at the same time, that's going to give Nog the confidence that he can do this, that he can be a part of this crew. So it works both ways.
Right, and I was thinking it was more Nog's experience would make him think of how difficult it actually is to be an effective officer on a starship.
Yeah, he's not there yet, apparently.
Right. Captain Waters is now recording a log, and we learn that they've been shadowing the ship and may have found a way to strike a blow for the Federation. In the mess hall, he's gathered the crew and tells them that they've completed their mission and they're free to go home, but they found a flaw in the design of the battleship, and they're now going to destroy it. Nog appears a little skeptical of the captain's plan and explains that to construct the torpedo to destroy the ship, they'll have to remove the guidance systems, which means they'll have to manually target it, and perhaps even worse, get very close.
Within like 300 meters, doesn't he say?
Yes, very close. First Officer Miss Cleek says, "We've trained to do that, shouldn't be a problem."
Yeah. I watch Star Wars, no big deal.
And because they're a cult, Captain Waters gives a pep talk, and all the others agree to go along with the plan. Jake interrupts, telling them that his father is one of the best combat officers in the fleet, and even he wouldn't try to pull off something like this. Waters responds with, "We're Red Squad. We can do anything."
Yeah.
And then the rest of the crew start chanting, "Red Squad, Red Squad, Red Squad,
Red Squad, Red Squad."
And Nog joins in.
Yeah, that's definitely the danger. They think they can do anything. But also, I would argue Jake doesn't really have any idea what his dad would do in this situation. I mean, he thinks it's crazy.
Yeah.
But he's not been part of a crew in combat before. So he's being a little full of himself, too. But he's just trying to say this is nuts, which I agree with.
Yeah, he wouldn't necessarily have tactical experience to make a judgment call on this plan. But at the same time, the plan seems a little crazy, and Nog seems to have doubts about it. And I assume he was feeding from Nog's reservations.
No, the plan does seem a little crazy, but he has no idea the crazy stuff his dad has done.
Oh, yes, the blowing up the White facility.
Exactly. He hasn't been on those ships.
Yeah.
So I think he was just trying to use his dad, use his name to give his argument some weight.
And let's not forget, his dad's plan of dealing with the Dominion fleet was fly into the wormhole and try and destroy as many as possible.
Right. Until you get killed.
Not exactly the best plan, but a fantastic last stand.
Well, nobody knew that. They just know that somehow he got rid of all the ships.
Back to engineering, and Jake is discussing the plan with Nog, and we see that Nog is getting completely sucked in here. He's defending Waters, saying he knows what he's doing. Jake cannot believe Nog is buying into this. And we see how Nog is just getting so dragged down. As he says, he's reminding us of our duty. Jake gets frustrated and delivers the line of the episode. "I feel like I'm having a conversation with one of the bulkheads." I think that's important. It's showing how Nog very quickly has been completely absorbed into the cult of Waters. He can't do anything wrong. He's a genius.
Yeah.
He's reminding us of our duty.
And we can't lose.
Yes.
Which is really dangerous.
Nog continues telling Jake, "You don't know anything about honor or duty. I'm part of something larger than myself." And Jake tells Nog he cares more about not getting killed by a bunch of delusional fanatics looking for martyrdom. This pushes Nog over the edge, who just tells him to get out. Meanwhile, during this conversation, Waters has been listening in and watching on a security camera and hears everything.
Yeah.
As Jake leaves, he's detained by 2 cadets carrying phasers and told he'll be spending the rest of the mission in the brig.
That's also like a high school thing that you want to eavesdrop on other people's conversations to know how they feel about you.
We now get a montage of the crew preparing the ship for battle.
This was such a cheesy montage.
It really was.
Between the music and there were people running. I mean, where are they going? It was so silly. And then they've got little suitcases and they're putting the bags into those little lockers. And it just made no sense. Are we not preparing to shoot at something? What were we doing?
Yeah, I think it was just an attempt to show how they were all getting geared up for this. Well, they're about to engage the enemy, and Waters gives another pep talk, telling the crew, "This moment will never come again. Hold on to it. Savor it for as long as you can. You're Starfleet. You're Red Squad. You're the best. Now let's get this battleship and go home." I would say he is great at delivering speeches.
He gives a good speech.
Yeah, these little pep talks to the cult members. Yeah, he's keeping them completely wrapped up. On the bridge of the Valiant, we see a shot of the giant battleship, and Waters orders them to go in on a strafing run, and they're off. We get an awesome space battle here between the two ships. The Valiant is taking some damage, there are explosions on the bridge, and roof beams are already coming down. There's now a fire on the bridge, and it looks like one of the cadets has already bought it.
Oh yeah, someone goes quick.
First Officer Grumpy Cat reports that she's acquired the target and locked on the torpedoes. The Valiant is getting beaten up, but they're still on target. Another cadet goes down with an exploding console. They get in really close, and Karen fires the first shot, hitting the ship exactly where targeted, and they see the battleship engulfed in a huge explosion, and they start cheering.
Yep.
There really were some great battle effects here. I really did enjoy the special effects.
Yeah, it was a good scene.
But as the explosion clears, we see the giant battleship is apparently undamaged.
Oh.
On the bridge, everybody looks shocked, and the first officer reports, it was a direct hit. It just didn't work.
It had to cause some damage, though. We saw a bunch of explosions inside the other ship. But yeah, when it came out of the explosion all in one piece, it was like, oh no.
Yeah. At this point, I think the plan is, run away, morons. Run away.
Yeah, you are dead.
Immediately, they start taking fire, and the captain tries to give a new course. But they're hit again, and Waters is thrown to the floor, and we see he's badly burned and probably dead. Nog looks around the bridge. The ceiling is falling in, and there are fires everywhere. More outside shots of the Valiant getting plastered.
Mm-hmm.
Nog reports main power is offline, and there's no helm control. And just as he says that, there's another explosion, taking out the helm and the first officer. Mean Girl is dead.
Oh.
Dorian, who's also on the bridge and is bleeding from a head wound, takes the helm and asks Nog for orders. Nog tells her, it's over. Dorian protests, saying, the captain wanted us to... But Nog cuts her off, saying, the captain is dead, Chief. They're all dead. The ship is lost. Yeah. There is no reason for us to die here too. And as Nigel Roddenberry starts announcing, abandon ship, this is not a drill, Nog helps Dorian off the bridge.
At least Nog kept his head in this situation.
Yes. This is where I think Nog having the experience of being with Sisko, of being with Garak. If you remember, Garak was explaining the tactical plans to Nog.
Right.
Nog has gained this experience of knowing what it's like to be in a serious battle. So he would have that level of experience of knowing, I think, what to do in those situations or where the endpoints are.
Yeah.
He's not the fanatic in this situation. Fortunately, Nog finds Jake and rescues him from the brig, and they make their escape. From the outside, we see the Valiant releasing escape pods, but the battleship just takes 2 of them out immediately. 2 more are released, except one of them is destroyed by the exploding Valiant. Only 1 pod flies away from the ship, and I really hope it's the one that Jake and Nog are on.
Ah, that was brutal, all the escape pods getting blown up except for 1.
It really was, yeah. Just love all these effects. This is a great effects-heavy episode. On the Defiant, Major Kira reports she's received a distress call from an escape pod from the USS Valiant. Worf thinks this could be a trap, but Sisko orders the ship cloaked and to lay in a course. Now we cut to Sisko talking to Jake as they walk down a corridor, and he tells him there were no more escape pods. In sickbay, Bashir tells Sisko he's repaired Dorian's fractured skull and she should be fine. Nog, on the other hand, just had bumps and bruises. You know, Nog's probably the guy who's going to survive things. I think I'd want Nog on my crew. Jake goes to talk to Nog, who seems extremely down. Jake, being a good friend, just asks if he's okay. Nog asks if he's going to write a story about this and what he's going to say. Jake asks, what do you think I should say? And Nog replies, that it was a good ship with a good crew that made a mistake. We let ourselves blindly follow Captain Waters, and he led us over a cliff. Dorian, who's now awake, says, that's not true. Captain Waters was a great man. Jake tells her, Dorian, he got everyone killed. She replies, if he failed, it's because we failed him. Wow.
Not only did he get everyone killed, but he also failed in his mission.
Yes.
Because all those recordings that they took of that battleship were lost.
Yeah. Nog tells Jake, put that in your story too. Let people read it. Decide for themselves. Nog then walks over to Dorian and gives her the Red Squad pin, saying, he may have been a hero, he may have even been a great man, but in the end, he was a bad captain. Dorian looks away, and then looks at the Red Squad pin Nog gave her. And we close on the Defiant flying through space. The end.
I mean, he was a bad captain, but also he wasn't a captain. He was just a kid.
Yes. And he was an extremely dangerous, self-aggrandizing Napoleon.
Yeah.
Is the only way I could describe him.
Well, do you have other overanalysis?
Yes, I think I do. Regarding Waters, I see Waters as very much a charismatic figure. Someone who could really convince these people.
Yeah.
You saw some of that with Nog, where he said to Nog, you need to step up. You can do this. And I would see him using those sort of manipulative approaches to the other members of the crew and having them all look up to him. I see him very much as portrayed as a cult leader and as one of these individuals that carefully craft their image and how they behave and ends up with a following who literally will follow them off a cliff, which is exactly what happened here. And unquestioningly, and also the other side of him as well is demanding this level of behavior, which is the other cult side of it well. Yeah. You have to behave a particular way. You can't show emotions. You can't be upset.
Yep. You can't feel any differently than I say you can feel.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a control freak thing from someone who doesn't understand how to be a leader.
Now, I was thinking about this, and I realized that there's probably a good reason he was in this position and why Red Squad existed. Having organizations exist like this within Starfleet is extraordinarily toxic, corrosive, and will lead to these kind of people. And I thought, why don't they ban it? Why wouldn't you want to discourage that kind of negative elitism? And I suddenly realized it's because Leighton wanted it that way. Leighton wanted, who was the admiral in charge, if you remember.
Yeah.
He wanted basically the Starfleet youth. He wanted this group of cadets who would be indoctrinated, who would be cult followers and would follow the leader to the very end. And even the way Dorian says, oh, we failed him. They're putting their failures on their subordinates. So some of the blame of their behavior and how they happen, it's because it was deliberately created.
I certainly hadn't thought about that. This team is a product of Admiral Falcon Crest.
Yep.
And they're exactly what he wanted.
Yes.
So that was a successful experiment for him because he got exactly what he wanted. And if they hadn't lost all of the senior members of that crew, this group may have turned out to be something great.
Yeah.
But they also may have been a real problem within Starfleet.
Right. If those people had gone on to have other commands or been on other ships and would have expected this absolutely reverential level of loyalty, that would be bad for Starfleet as a whole. And I was wondering, maybe another part of this, maybe another overanalysis point, were they trying to show, if you like, the Federation version of the Jem'Hadar? The victory is life.
Yeah, I was looking a little bit for the parallels between the Jem'Hadar soldiers and Red Squad.
Yeah.
So maybe if it struck both of us, that might have been the point. Because not only was it just true loyalty and you don't question the ones above you, it was also this extreme overconfidence. And we've talked about that being a problem in many other situations when we have dealt with the Cardassians and with the Jem'Hadar, at least with the Alphas, where they're not being pragmatic or rational. They're just like, obviously I can do this and it'll be great. And, obviously you're dead.
That's funny you should say the Alphas, because another one of my points is I kept feeling there were moments in this one where Jake was almost like the older Gamma.
Oh, yeah.
From One Little Ship.
Is anybody seeing this thing?
There was so many moments where the Gamma was like, is it just me? Is everybody else gone crazy? And I felt that was sort of Jake in this situation.
One of my overanalysis points sort of ties into what you're saying a little bit. I was wondering about it as not so much the cult that had been created by Admiral Falcon Crest Leighton, but I was thinking, is this just an example of how the cult of Starfleet can go wrong?
Oh.
Because we always are right. We're always righteous. What we want to do is the right decision. And you have to have some confidence to go out into space and to do many of the things that get done. So I was wondering if this was just an example of that cult going wrong. And that made me think about Nog. Was he falling for the cult of Starfleet, or was this just because of his own history, where he felt like an outsider trying to get into Red Squad back when he was in school?
I think it was his own history. I think it was very specifically something which appealed to Nog, because he's the only Ferengi. The other Ferengi don't respect him. He seems to have to perform at a higher level than a lot of the other people. So I think
true.
it was very specific to Nog.
And I guess if he had had no doubts, then at the end he would have ended up getting them all killed. He wouldn't have done what he did.
Yeah, he wouldn't have saved Dorian. She was ready to die with the ship.
Yeah. So I guess you can look at this two ways. You can look at this as the cult of Starfleet as being the problem, or you can look at this as the cult of Leighton.
Yeah.
I don't know which one it is. It seems like it's probably more about Leighton building this Red Squad, because it's also fighting against the tenets of Starfleet, which you mentioned back in that episode where we're all equal.
Yes.
This is not that. This is, we're all equal except for this very special group.
Right. And I think you would want to discourage that sort of behavior within Starfleet Academy of, yes, you have really talented students, but I don't think you want to separate them from everyone else and create basically artificial cliques or very dangerous cults, subcults within Starfleet.
Yeah, I'm not sure it makes sense within Starfleet. Maybe it makes sense if you're planning these people to be Section 31.
Oh, that's another good point. I think ultimately at the end of the day, these were going to be Leighton's stormtroopers, and that's what he needed.
Right.
Next point. Did Waters allow Captain Ramirez to die?
Yeah, that was my very first overanalysis point. I mean, I certainly thought that as I was watching the episode, but by the time we got to the end, I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think he would necessarily directly cause the demise of Ramirez by not helping him or something more nefarious. But I could see him misinterpreting what Ramirez told him. Like, maybe Ramirez said, you need to get them home. You need to get this ship home. You need to get the cadets home. And he went, oh, okay, that means, therefore, you have put me in charge. Oh, and the person in charge is the captain. Therefore, I'm now the acting captain of the ship. And I say we keep the mission going.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I could see that sort of logic with basically Napoleon, Junior Napoleon.
I think that's what happened.
And I think my final point here is, didn't anybody ask what happened to Red Squad after the events in Paradise Lost? Did everybody go, so where's Red Squad? Yeah, I don't know. Wouldn't you want to find these people and find out what else they've been up to? What kind of indoctrination's been involved?
Yeah. Did Sisko just leave Earth and go, I'm sure it's fine?
Somebody filed a report saying, yeah, we couldn't find him. It's all good.
Well, let's think about that, because maybe this was actually looked as a way to get them off Earth, to get them out on a mission, get them some training, some real life training, and it wouldn't be too risky or too dangerous because the war hadn't started when they were sent out. So maybe this was a way to try to sweep them under the rug.
Oh.
Because they were going to be gone for a long time. And they figured by the time they got back, they could make a new plan and maybe spread them out and break them up. That's what they should have done, is send each one should have gone somewhere else. Maybe it was just a cover-up. Or maybe this was the plan all along. Send them out, they'll get killed. We don't have to worry about it.
Leighton would be the kind of person who would do that and justify as it's for the best of Starfleet.
Yeah.
They served their purpose.
He wasn't in charge anymore, though, by that point.
They said it was 8 months, so I was trying to figure out, would that tie back to the timeline of Paradise Lost?
No, I think that was way, way longer ago. But also, I don't think Leighton would have sent them away. He wanted them to be the soldiers right by his side. He wanted them to be the team that he could send out by snapping his fingers all the time.
Oh, gosh, that makes it even worse, because you know what that means? That means somebody knew about this and basically, like you said, has swept it under the rug. Oh, send them out on a long training mission, keep them away.
Or they didn't stop doing it.
Yeah.
This was always the plan, maybe with Red Squad.
Yeah. Wow.
And now there's a new Red Squad. Maybe not after this.
Yeah. I think they need to take a long look at that one.
Yeah. We need to do, we talked about this, I don't remember, was it last week? We need a post-mortem on this plan.
Deprogramming. I would see a lot of admirals blaming Leighton for this.
Oh, absolutely.
And my very last point here is, I think Jake has a fantastic story.
Totally. Yeah, this is a great story.
I feel bad for Dorian, though. I mean, she will need serious deprogramming.
Yeah, she needs a long rest and to maybe reconsider Starfleet.
Yeah.
Might not be for her.
Oh, that seems kind of sad.
Yeah.
Maybe the Fenris Rangers?
I don't know. She seemed like she needed a long vacation, and then she could decide.
Yeah. Over to you, Kim.
Well, we probably talked about everything I have. I had a feeling of doom the whole episode that there was something else going on, but it turned out it was all at face value, which is interesting.
Maybe that was a nice plot touch.
Maybe.
If you watch enough TV, you know sort of the signs, and they led you down that path, and then they're like, no, it wasn't really, they weren't really bad, they were just idiots.
So maybe only 2 points that I have.
Okay.
One is, there was nobody there to tell them that their overconfidence was insane.
Yeah.
They weren't going to believe it from Jake. They might have believed it from their real captain or from a senior member of that crew. But they weren't going to believe it from Jake, and they weren't going to believe it from anybody in the crew because now they were just totally doing whatever Waters told them to do.
It was their duty.
Yeah, somebody needed to tell them, you guys are crazy. Somebody that they trusted. Yeah. But they didn't have that, so it was interesting. My last point is that I really wanted Sisko to talk to Nog at the end. I wanted him to be the one who told him the right Starfleet thing to do or the way to behave in that situation. Yeah. I don't know. I wanted a sane Starfleet person, I guess, with experience to talk to Nog and to talk to Dorian.
That would have been really good.
I thought that was, a missed opportunity there.
Having, if you like, almost a debriefing with Nog of what did you learn from this, Mr. Nog? The captain isn't always right. Bingo.
I mean, I guess we should hope that's what happened after they stopped shooting. No, after they stopped shooting, they all put on their normal human clothes and went home. Well, that was really all I had in my overanalysis. I didn't have anything different from what we already talked about. And in Women in the Future, I don't have much because there were women in this episode and they were just doing their jobs just like anyone else. And that's great. That's all I ever ask for.
They did seem to have equal position within the cult.
They did. And really the only annoying part was back on the station at the beginning with Dax, where, we had to deal with Quark and somebody being in love with Dax again. Oy, no wonder that actress was annoyed on this show. Okay, so let's go to rating. Thumbs up, thumbs down, or neutral. What is your rating?
Thumbs up. I thoroughly enjoyed the episode. It was a very interesting study into Starfleet behavior and how a captain can drive everything off the rails. And I really liked Jake and Nog in this. You saw how their friendship could become strained and how Jake at the end, the way he just comes back to him, asks him how he's doing. Very watchable episode.
Yeah, I give it a thumbs up as well. This was something, I didn't know anything about this episode. I didn't know what it was when we started, and I was quite surprised by it, actually. So, yeah, I give it a thumbs up. I think there were some things they could have done a little better. Like I said, I really wanted a conversation at the end between Sisko and somebody to really talk through it. Otherwise, I thought it was good. It had such a brutal ending. I mean, they killed all of them except for just that one member of that crew, and that was tough. And we didn't talk about either this big, scary battleship. Did somebody fill in, Sisko, about what they saw?
Yeah, it's twice the size of a Galaxy class.
It was huge. Scary.
Yeah.
All right. I think that wraps up Season 6, Episode 22. Normally, I would tell you to come back next week for episode 23, but we are actually going to skip episode 23, which is an episode entitled Prophet and Lace, and next week we are going to do episode 24.
We could just rant about how absolutely appalling episode 23 is and everything wrong with it, but I think it's probably for the best if we just skip it and say, that episode really does need to be shot in the head and buried in the desert somewhere.
That episode is so bad.
It's trivializing things that shouldn't be trivialized.
I don't normally watch ahead. I like to record and then watch the next one because that just sort of keeps my palate clean when we talk about the current episode. But I watched the next one because James was concerned that I was really not going to like it. And I didn't want to do what we did the last time we had a very offensive Ferengi episode where I watched it and then we recorded and then we didn't have another episode that week. And so I don't want to do that. So instead, we're just going to skip it. The episode was offensive from first scene to last scene. It's really awful. It is very anti-woman. It is anti a lot of other groups as well. And it's very frustrating. They had an opportunity to redeem themselves at least a little bit at the end because in the beginning, Quark is essentially sexually harassing one of his employees. And they have the opportunity at the end because he claims that he feels bad. That was a terrible thing. But instead of leaning into that, which would have been the right thing to do, they claimed that the woman had now decided that what Quark had wanted was actually fun. That was a good thing, and that's something that she would want as well. And I have to tell you that if you're the person who wrote that, you need to look at yourself, because there is something wrong with you if you think that's the way that would go.
So from that, we're really not going to waste any more time talking about that episode.
Yeah, we are not going to walk through those scenes. I absolutely refuse. So instead, we're going to stay in the happy zone and we're going to move to the next episode. So this wraps up Season 6, Episode 22. Come back next week for Episode 24. In the meantime, if you'd like to send us your own over-analysis of this or any episode, or if you just want to say something nice, you can email us at rebingeit@gmail.com, or you can tweet us at rebingeit. We're also on Instagram and YouTube at rebingeit. You can check us out on talkthroughmedia.com. You can leave feedback there for individual episodes, or you can listen to the other podcasts in our network.
Thanks for joining us on the Rebinge Deep Space Nine podcast.
That's it for me.
And that's it from me.